There is a lot of uncertainty when it comes to the Bay Area housing market, and there are quite a few people who are predicting a total market crash here in the Bay Area. But will that actually happen? Coming up on this Silicon Valley Snapshot. There's been a lot of speculation, talks of a potential housing crash around the nation, but specifically here in the Bay Area. How likely is that to happen? But before we get into all of that, before we get into the data, if you're a home buyer in today's marketplace and you're looking for a comprehensive data set to assist you in your home buying decision making, now more than ever, data is going to prove essential to making an impactful offer. So go ahead and text the word data plus the area or the neighborhood or the zip code that you're looking in, and we'll get that information sent straight to your inbox. And if you're a home seller in today's marketplace and you're trying to figure out what's the right strategy, what's the right approach to making sure that I maximize my equity, that I maximize the value, go ahead and text the word data plus your property address to the number down below, and we'll get all that information sent straight to your inbox. The last couple of years here in the Bay Area have been absolutely insane for housing. And it was only a matter of time before we started to see things normalize. And now that we're starting to see things normalize, a lot of people are speculating or wondering, will this market crash? And it's very common for media outlets, especially the smaller ones, the ones that need attention, to write headlines that get clicks and that get attention. And what that does is it puts a lot of fear, a lot of unnecessary fear, I believe, in the minds of the consumer. And so what I want to do today is really just go through and figure out what could happen. What does the future look like as the market is shifting here in the Bay Area? First off, let's tap into the psychology of it all, which is when you look at what's happened recently with the trends, the housing trends, and you look at the media headlines that are associated with those, and we really come into this phenomenon of recency bias, where yes, the market crashed in 2008 and 2009, but that is really the only time in history where the market has crashed. But because of this recency bias, it's really easy to think, okay, well, a correction equals a crash, or a blip, a little bump in the road is going to equal a crash. And so because in very recent memory, we had this massive housing market crisis, it's causing, I believe, a lot of consumers to feel like we're right back where we were in 2008 and 2009, which could not be further from the truth. Let's face it, 2008, 2009.
We are watching this market deteriorate. We're red everywhere, essentially, down by 4-5%. We're down over 16%. Dow at the same time has fallen about 18%.
It was brutal. That being said, this is not 2008 and 2009, but because it's what's most recently in our memory, it's easy to associate what's going on right now. But if you look at all of the lead metrics, the things that are leading or that are causing this stabilization and neutralization in the market, the leading factors and contributors of the current market correction that's going on are nothing compared to what was going on in 2008 and 2009. Totally different circumstances will yield totally different outcomes. And that's exactly what's going on right now. In 2022, totally different circumstances are going to equate to, I believe, a much different outcome than what happened in 2008 and 2009. A phenomenal op-ed that I just read on housingwire.com titled, "Opinion: Understanding Trends is Key to Predicting the Next Housing Shift." This article actually covers a lot of really great information and a lot of talking points surrounding what many are saying is going to be a crash, and the reasons why. Well, number one is rates, and the rates going up, and number two are a potential wave of foreclosures. And so it deconstructed these arguments very, very, very well. When it comes to rates, this article reminds us that recently mortgage rates have been a primary driver of the negative headlines that serve to incite panic over an imminent housing crash. The narrative is that mortgage rates are now at a 3-year high. Housing affordability will go down. People might panic, and people will buy fewer homes. There will be less demand for homes, and that would be one of the big reasons there might be a housing crash. No document has ever correlated rising interest rates with falling housing prices. And by the way, I have covered this on numerous Silicon Valley snapshots. You can check them out below. I've got a link of a couple of them where I actually show you different indexes, the Case-Shiller index, for example, that shows there is no direct correlation between interest rates and housing prices in either direction, meaning rates don't impact prices, prices don't impact rates. They do not correlate together in any way. The article goes on to say that in reality, mortgage rates have little correlation to home prices. The data shows us that rates have had no impact on prices in the last 40 years. Historical data shows that house prices have continuously gone up irrespective of where interest rates are. That is because mortgage rates are cyclical. They go up and down. Surprisingly, home prices are not. They continue to rise. So what does this mean? Well, it means, yes, rates are going to continue to rise, even if rates continue to rise, which almost assuredly they will. Where does that put the consumer? Well, obviously it's going to raise their payments and that will impact their purchase power, but that has not slowed the market down historically in the past. Now, could this buck the trend? Could this be the first time that ever happens? Yeah, absolutely. But history tends to repeat itself. And I believe that in this case, the mortgage rates will not really have a negative impact on the long-term frothiness and viability of the market, especially here in Silicon Valley, where, let's face it, like, an increase in payments. Okay, like let's say my payments increase by 10%. Okay, great. Well, instead of $10,000 a month, I'm paying $11,000 a month for a $2 million home. Oh, great. I have to go to Morton's 2 less times this month. Oh, boohoo. And that's really the punchline. Is we think of these things as like, oh my God, like the theory is like, oh gosh, like the theory sounds terrible. Like rates go up, prices have to come down. But when you think about the actual like numbers and you think about the actual like logically, like when you think about it logically, just like, okay, 2 less dinners at Morton's every month. Okay, awesome. But when you think about it logically, it really just starts to matter less. And then we get to the subject of foreclosures. And this is really where I believe this article hits home. The article says another culprit behind the negative housing headlines is the so-called imminent wave of foreclosures that will come as the number of people in COVID-19 forbearance exits. In 2006, a flood of foreclosures flooding the market did trigger a dramatic drop in home prices. Today, the reality is vastly different. In 2021, the record increase in home prices helped homeowners build equity to roughly $2.1 trillion, the most significant annual increase in equity. Data shows homebuyers since 1954 built equity for decades. Those who did not build equity purchased between 2003 and 2007. Means that in the last 70 years, only for 4 years, people who had purchased a home lost equity. And it took them about 6 or 7 years to recover. Which other asset class has that same kind of history? The answer is none. And this is exactly why the forbearance argument never really picked up a lot of steam, because as people were saying the forbearance was going to cause massive issues, prices were going up and up and up and up. And so even if someone is forced to sell at this point, they've got more than enough equity. They should have more than enough equity to get out from that house, get out from underneath that house without any sort of loss. In fact, they'll probably end up making money, even if financially they're no longer able to afford that home, which very small segment, and I've covered this on other videos, are still in forbearance and still have issues and still have outstanding loan issues with forbearance. So really small subset of people of Americans are going to have to essentially sell their home due to forbearance crisis or pressure from forbearance loans coming due. So this concept that we're going to see a flood of inventory because forbearance is going to cause many homeowners to have to sell, it's just not the case. And the equity that's been built over the last really like 2 years has kept a lot of those people safe and will continue to keep those people safe if they need to sell, which honestly, like most of them don't. If you look at the facts, if you look at the data, most of those people are actually no longer in any sort of forbearance repayment plan. And finally, one of the best points that I read in this article had to do with the healthiness of the housing market in comparison to the amount of new construction that's currently being built and what the need for new construction is. So really measuring like what is the need versus what is the actual output right now. And the numbers might shock you a little bit. In 2021 alone, we had a shortfall of about 5.1 million homes around the United States. That's between the number of households forming versus the number of homes that are being constructed. So that is a 5.1 million house delta between necessity and output. Even if the building pace were to pick up by 2 times, it would take 7 years to close the existing gap. We all know there are supply chain issues right now, and I'm not going to get into politics of all of that, but the truth is that there's a need for homes. There's a need for homes all around the country, and especially here in the Bay Area where there's no more real estate. And the truth is that the demand is outpacing the amount of homes that are being built on a consistent basis. I mean, you go out and you see what's happening in areas like Modesto and Stockton and Lathrop, and even further out, you go into Sacramento. I mean, if you drive those freeways, you will see construction site after construction site after construction site. And you know what? It's still not enough. It's still not enough for the amount of households forming. And so that's really the punchline, is that when you look at supply and demand and you look at it from all different aspects and look at it from all different angles, I mean, the fear mongers are going to be there. But the reality is that right now, the housing market, while it might be slowing down, and by the way, like, this was a much needed slowdown and a much needed stabilization. I'm going to be driving home now for a long time, because I know that as the market begins to stabilize, the recency bias is, oh, wow, homes have been selling for 7 days and now it's taking 30. It must be crashing. And of course, it's natural to think that. That being said, that's not the case. If you look at national data, even, the economic principles of real estate and what absorption rates are typical for a seller's market versus a buyer's market, we are still well in that range of a seller's market. And I believe that we're going to be there for a very long time. And anytime you read an article that tries to convince you otherwise, just remember these key facts. Number one, rising rates will do nothing to the long-term viability of the housing market, especially here in the Bay Area. 2 less dinners at Morton's. That's it. Number 2, the forbearance issue is no longer an issue. And the fact that equity has risen so much over the last 2 years that anyone who does need to get out from underneath their forbearance repayment plan can get out unscathed. And number 3, we currently have a shortfall of 5.1 million homes here in the US, meaning we've had 5.1 million more households formed than homes built in 2021. And that should bring a lot of tranquility to anybody that's believing this fear-mongering, sky is falling narrative that some outlets are using as clickbait. If you've made it this far in the video, first of all, thank you so much for watching this video. It means a lot to me. As a token of my appreciation, you can text the word free shirt to the number down below and we'll get you set up with a free Selling Silicon Valley t-shirt. And if you're not already subscribed, what are you waiting for? Go ahead and click that subscribe button, click the notification bell and give me a like. It literally takes you 5 seconds, doesn't cost you anything, and it really, really helps me get in front of more people just like you. It helps me spread the good word because people need to hear good news when there's all of these negative media headlines out there. Like, screw that. I'm here to deliver the truth and I'm just here to deliver facts. And that's exactly what this is. It's facts, no fear mongering, just facts. This is Danny Gould, everyone, Selling Silicon Valley. I will catch all of you in the next Silicon Valley Snapshot.